Well, we want to welcome you to the Living Well podcast presented by Elim Christian Centre. This week is Mental Health Awareness Week in New Zealand, and we're doing this to really bring awareness to some of the challenges that we all face in our everyday lives. Now, in today's episode, we are discussing what to do on the worst day of your life. And my name is Mike Griffiths. I'm part of the pastoral team and also part of the counselling team here. And we're hugely privileged today to have our senior pastor, Pastor Steve Green, joining us, which is awesome. Stevie, great to have you with us.
Thank you, Michael.
I think let me start by saying how grateful I think we all are that your children got their looks from their mother.
Wow! Just watch the microphone. Your nose might knock it, buddy.
You know what? Funny you should say that. I was using my nose trimmer this morning. And honestly, it was when your lawnmower goes over a bit of concrete?
Yeah.
I'm like, wow, something's going on.
Yeah.
I think I actually need a new nose trimmer, but I'm trying to find one with a catcher. There's just nothing out there.
Too good.
Certainly nothing on Temu. Stevie, you are the senior pastor of one of the largest churches in this country. You've got a very large campus church, 7 campus churches, getting between 4,000 and 5,000 people out any given Sunday at the moment, which is extraordinary. You know, we've been hearing a lot of stories lately about churches, not just in New Zealand, but around the world, that are in decline, and yet all of our churches are in growth and seeing new convert growth, which is extraordinary. You've got an awesome team of leaders who would all take a bullet for you. You're young, despite my joke, good looking.
Ridiculously good looking.
Ridiculously so.
Thank you.
You've got a great family. You're a competitive CrossFit athlete.
Be careful with that one. Participant.
You do a cold plunge every morning. You speak internationally as well as nationally, although I know that's not a priority for you. You're a great communicator. You're a very strategic and intuitive leader. But it hasn't always been beer and Skittles, has it? Stevie, take us back to the year when you were absolutely convinced that you were going to lose your career.
Wow, thanks, Mike, and thanks for pumping up my tyres a little bit there. 2020 was the year I would say that the wheels kind of fell off a bit, and definitely felt like this is it. This is the end of it, and the end of my career. Not just the end of my career, but the end of my calling, the end of, in many ways, the end of life itself, in many respects. So 2020, obviously we had a global pandemic, but this was kind of non-related to that. I had just come off a sabbatical into 2019. I was just being inducted into the church as the senior pastor of the church. I've been on the staff of the church for many, many years, now 22 years on staff. And I had, while on sabbatical leave, I'd contracted a virus of some description, but it had done damage to the vestibular nerve in my right ear, which caused a balance disorder. Now, early on in the journey, I didn't know it was that. I didn't know that there was a thing, called vestibular neuritis. But all I knew is that something happened to me on that trip. I got really intense vertigo, and I never fully recovered from that.
So talk us through what was the experience?
So we're on sabbatical. We've taken some time out, but we're in the UK. And while we're there, I thought, hey, I'll go do a bit of preaching for some friends, and we've got mates over there. So I'm doing some preaching. I'm literally preaching second service in a church in Birmingham, UK, Elim Church in Birmingham, and I'm mid-preach, and it's like I get hit with a baseball bat. The whole world just starts spinning mid-sermon, and it was just the most bizarre feeling, and also almost worst case scenario. If you think like I'm a public speaker, I'm standing up in front of I think there was probably 400 or 500 people in the church at that time. Worst case scenario, you all of a sudden you're about to pass out on stage. You can't stand. I managed to sort of scramble my way through the sermon, but after that, I was a bit freaked out, to be honest. Yeah. I was thinking, what is this? What's 100%. Going on? What's happening? What does this mean? That was, I guess, the beginning of.
So it wasn't just a one-off.
No, so I had this really massive onset vertigo, which lasted about 48 hours, and then the vertigo sort of stopped, but I never fully came back. My balance never fully recovered, and it was almost It was really hard to pinpoint. It was really hard to put my finger on what was going on. The way I could describe it now is it's like having a brain injury where you're incredibly fatigued.
Wow.
Motion just messes you up. I'm having these sort of waves of very uneasy feelings of lack of balance.
Yeah.
I'm at times feeling like I'm about to pass out, like
Wow.
about to lose consciousness.
Sure you weren't hungover?
Yeah. Fortunately not. But no, and I felt like the world and my perception of the world, there was a disconnect between what I was seeing, where I was going, what I was doing, what I was thinking, and then the processing of that. It was just this bizarre disconnect, and made me feel incredibly uneasy, very on edge, but then also incredibly tired. So that was the beginning of a physical issue.
And so for a guy whose job, whose calling, his purpose is to stand and preach and encourage and teach, that directly affected your ability
Absolutely.
to be the guy you felt you were called to be.
Absolutely. And to do something I've always enjoyed, to do something I've always found great joy and purpose in. And then all of a sudden to think, oh man, I can't do this.
Wow.
And to also find that in certain environments, this feeling of unease and feeling of being off balance and off kilter was actually more pronounced. And one of those environments I kept finding was when I was on stage trying to preach. It was just like, man, this is really difficult. And so it sort of hits right to the core of your calling and your purpose, and also your, like, a huge part of my job is to get up and do Sundays. So when you and the other thing is Sundays come around real fast. When you're a preacher, when you lead a church, you realize, man, Sundays come quick.
Yeah.
And man, just to have to think I've got to get back up and do that again and again and again. When it gets to the point, it's actually quite distressing to do that because your body is kind of feeling all these bizarre emotions and feelings.
So your body's going into fight or flight, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's what we discovered, was that every time I would feel this kind of uneasy balance feeling, which in the initial stages was pretty much all the time.
Wow.
And more pronounced in certain environments, your body is constantly going into a stress response. So your body is triggering, something's not right, we're off balance, we're off kilter. And so there is a internal, just natural physiological response to those things. I kind of liken it a little bit to, say you step off a curb that you didn't see. And you just kind of get that little fright and your adrenaline goes up and you're sort of, and you're a bit shook for a little bit. It's the same kind of feeling. But if you have that 7, 8, 9, 10 times a day, you end up in a heightened stress response, a heightened state of alertness, and then you
just
start
the thought of preaching.
Oh, absolutely, and that's eventually where it got to for me.
Yeah.
So 2020.
So this rolled out over what sort of time frame?
About 8 months.
Wow.
Yeah. So I was undiagnosed for 8 months. Yeah. We came back from the UK. I wasn't right. Got inducted as senior pastor. Then was trying to pick up this mantle of running this significant church, multiple campuses, multiple staff, and also feeling this pressure that, I'm taking over from a legend here in Pastor Luke Bro, and I've got to measure up. Like I've got to prove to this people that I've got the goods, and that I can carry this, and that I can take this to the next level. And so there's a lot of internal pressure. No one external is putting that on me, but there's a lot of internal pressure to perform. And
I mean, that's a huge amount of pressure on your best day.
Yeah, on a good day, that's a lot to take in, right? And then when you're not really functioning, and then I guess you throw in lockdowns, COVID, Zooms. I mean, in the early days, the visual stimulation of a Zoom meeting was so kind of overwhelming for my brain with this balance issue that I would do one Zoom and then have to sleep for 4 hours.
Wow.
Do half an hour Zoom and I'm exhausted. I can barely function.
Wow.
So I'm trying to manage this. I'm trying to get up, trying to do stuff, but it's becoming increasingly more difficult. And as time goes on, I'm having less and less answers to what's going on, and doctors aren't really being too helpful, and I'm struggling along, to be honest with you.
Yeah. And so, Steve, so this is what's going on for you physiologically. I know you've shared with me before about the issue with the vestibular problems is that because your inner ear canals, because your brain can't work out your balance in its normal way, you've used your eyes a whole lot more. So your visual intensity trying to establish balance, that's what exhausts you. That's what magnifies the issues, right?
After going through the journey of being diagnosed and getting proper help for it, you understand that your eyes and your balance are deeply connected. So if the vestibular organ, which is your balance organ, so my hearing's not affected, but the balance organ is affected. Your eyes are tracking everything, and your brain is trying to compute everything. And if the balance organ is not doing its job to let you know where you are in space, your brain and your eyes are picking up that slack, trying to make sense of everything.
Right.
And so that's what creates this fatigue. Right. And when you're overstimulated visually, it can have it can be quite detrimental, because your brain is trying to do all its normal functions as well as trying to figure out balance.
Wow.
And then when it's overstimulated, it just can't cope with everything. It's like it's got a set amount of RAM. And then once it's overloaded, it just starts to shut down and buffer. And so that's what it's like. It's almost like, you're buffering for a minute there, and your balance gives away. Or, the other ways it would manifest would be, I'd just lose my train of thought. If I was overstimulated, it's like something's got to give. And so I'd be mid-conversation or mid-sermon, and all of a sudden I'm like, I have no idea what I'm saying. I have no idea where I am. You get a bit lost. And then again, that's quite distressing.
Totally. This must have been frightening. It must have been terrifying.
It was. And it was terrifying because externally I was well and healthy.
Yeah.
And no matter how much I would say, something's not right, it's like, no, but you look good.
Yeah.
You're doing fine. But it was this real internal battle for me to try and get some answers to what was going on, what was wrong. I knew something was wrong, but I didn't know what it was. But then also still just trying to manage life and family and preaching and being a pastor.
Yep.
And so then, let's go 6 to 7 months of undiagnosed balance issue. And
feeling like you're going crazy.
Feel like I'm going crazy. Something's not right. Every time I get up to preach, this is challenging. And now, because certain environments are more triggering for the balance issue, I'm starting to, not even consciously, I'm starting to fear certain places and environments. I'm starting to get really anxious about being in certain places. Church, I got saved in our church at 18, and I've loved being in our church every single day since then. Now, all of a sudden, the thought of going into that same place where I met Jesus is anxiety inducing. It's fear inducing. And so then I start to get through a Sunday, but just get through. And I get through my week, but I'm just getting through. I feel like I'm just scraping by. And so then the narrative in my mind is, well, how long can you do that for?
Right.
How long can we sustain just making it when I feel like I'm about to fall apart at any moment? And that's, again, so it's just feeding this deep level of anxiety.
Okay, so this is interesting, right? You had this virus, you had this episode that kicked off this whole deeply distressing experience for you that unfolded over 8 months before you got a diagnosis.
Yeah.
Helpful getting a diagnosis, but what do I do with this?
Yes.
Meanwhile, preaching becomes distressing. You're experiencing this on the daily. It's compounded by the fact that your visual now has to pick up your balance function, and so you're exhausted, brain fog, and then this starts kicking in mid-sermon where you lose your train of thought. You're a preacher.
Yeah.
Like you're a church leader. You've just taken over the biggest significant step of your life, stepping into this, this incredible thing passed on by Pastor Luke. And now the narrative is changing. Now the narrative, instead of being, you got this, tell us a bit more about what that narrative was, Steve. What the thoughts going on in your head?
So the narrative for me, it really centered around how long can I keep this up?
Right.
The narrative became, maybe I can't do it. And then what does that mean? Because I really felt that God had called me to it.
Yeah.
So then, did I hear God wrong? Did we all hear God wrong? Did we, maybe inducting me as senior pastor was a mistake. Maybe it shouldn't be me.
Wow.
And then the narrative became, well, how do I let them know? How do I let people down?
Wow.
And so that's really complex, and that goes to lots of very deep layers of who you are as a person, and your sense of purpose and calling and identity in Christ and all those kinds of things. And so I just start spiraling. If I'm honest with you, Griffey, I just start spiraling. I start the anxiety around Sundays, because they're just becoming so difficult, and not just there's the brain fog and the loss of train of thought, but there's also I'm having regular moments where I feel like on stage I'm about to pass out, and it's because my balance is being kind of like triggered, and I'm feeling really lightheaded, and that becomes so difficult. And when you're standing up in front of hundreds of people at a time, multiple times a day,
bright lights
with
in your
bright
eyes.
lights, lots of movement, lots of
Sound.
focus, lots of dynamic. It's like, man, it could not be more challenging. And in fact, if you were to look at someone who has a vestibular disorder, if you were to put, I guess, the top 3 environments that would be the hardest place for them to do a job, doing it in a church would be one of those 3. It's just so brutal. And so then I just start to go on this internal journey of, what do I do? What do I do?
Yeah.
And who do I tell? And what do I say? And is it safe to do that? How is this going to be received? And really just starting to feel this deep sense of hopelessness.
Right.
Because the anxiety is now becoming so
you've got ongoing daily and growing anxiety that's getting a little out of control now. You're starting to get a real depressed mood, a real struggling to stay hope-filled. In fact, you're not. You're losing hope on the daily. And
100%.
And dealing with the ongoing stress of this issue on every single day.
With no answers.
Hypervigilant, no answers, no way we'll work through this. Things got pretty bad, right?
Things got bad. I mean, it started small, a little bit. I'm a little bit nervous for Sunday, which is normal. Like, I still get nervous for Sunday, and I think it's a good thing. Otherwise, you're too self-reliant if you think you're the man and can do it all the time. But I start to get a little bit more than that, and then I start to find on a Saturday night, like, sleeping before a Sunday is never going to be perfect, but it starts to get a lot worse than normal. I'm normally a good sleeper, so
and this just compounds it, right?
It just compounds it. So I start
exhausted.
Start not sleeping. I'm already exhausted from stuff. So now I'm the anxiety of having to get back up and do it again. Is now making me not sleep. So I'm lying awake at night, not sleeping. And over time, as that keeps compounding, what I found was I would sleep on a Sunday night, and I'd sleep on a Monday night, and I'd sleep on a Tuesday night. But from Wednesday to Saturday, I barely slept. So by Wednesday, I'm starting to think about Sunday. And so then that's stealing all joy for Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And so I'm now not sleeping. I think there was a few weeks there where I slept probably 4 hours over the course of 5 days. It was just brutal. I was taking sleeping pills, but now the anxiety it was around that time that I started having my first panic attacks. So I started to...
So this has gone to another level.
Now it's gone to another level of anxiety. So the thought of being in an environment, or actually being in a triggering environment, I think what had happened was my body had been so connected now, the physiology had been so connected to stimulus response. So in this environment, there's a stress response that takes over because my balance disorder is being triggered. So now my physiology, my subconscious is addressing that with danger. It's saying, it's like the dog that bit you when you were 2 years old. Now you're scared of a toy poodle, and it's like it's irrational. You have this panic attack, but it's just because it's a stimulus and a response. And so now I'm starting to have that. So I'm now having panic attacks, and I've never had a panic attack in my life up until this point. I've never had severe anxiety like this. And if you've never had one, it's this intense dump of fear, irrational, severe, crippling fear, and uncontrollable. Your heart rate is absolutely through the roof, 180, 200 beats a minute plus. All your cognitive functions just shut off. You can't think straight. You can barely see, you can barely hear. Everything narrows down, and it's just this absolute extreme overwhelm. And you're not in control. It's totally outside of your control, but it just escalates. And then once you have one, you have another,
Yeah.
and you have another, and it's almost like creates a pathway.
Yes, it does.
And it begins to become this thing that now regularly I'm starting to have panic attacks, and then I'm having panic attacks in the middle of the night. It's crazy.
All right, so take us to the bottom. Take us to the worst day. Take us to the point where it was at its worst, and then something began to shift and change. Take us to that day.
So probably around September 26th, 2020. I had been battling this thing for a long time. It had got to the point where I was having panic attacks while I was preaching. I was exhausted physically. I was so anxious. My resting heart rate was absolutely through the roof. I was now getting to a place of utter hopelessness. And I remember for about a month leading up to this point, I was starting to get worried because I was beginning to fantasize of heaven.
Wow.
In a very unhealthy way.
Yep.
Because my narrative to this point has been, how do I get out of this? How do I stop this? How do I get off this train? The only way is out somehow. And I began to have such little hope for tomorrow that the only option was maybe
Ending it all.
maybe ending it all. And that's a scary thought.
Yeah.
So it's September 26th, 2020. I have had very little sleep for a few days. I'm scheduled to preach that Sunday. I'd preached the week before and preached one service, got halfway through, had a severe panic attack, managed to get my way through the rest of that service, but was absolutely exhausted. I think I was running on 1 hour sleep and about 4 sleeping pills that Sunday just to try and get myself there. I couldn't do any more services. I had to leave church and hand over my notes to Bex, who carried the rest of the service. I drove home that Sunday and I just bawled my eyes out the whole way home. And I remember going home, going to bed and just lying in bed going, I'm an utter failure.
Wow.
I'm an utter failure and I've let everybody down. And now what the heck do I do? And what's the answer? And am I done? Am I finished? Is this over?
Right.
And I managed to try and pull myself together that week and was scheduled to preach that coming Sunday. No, I wasn't actually scheduled to preach. I was just scheduled to be there at church. And it was a Saturday morning and I woke up and I knew I wasn't okay because I could not shake the darkness. I couldn't shake the depression. I couldn't shake this sense of hopelessness and sadness. And there was just tears were right there, they're just right there the whole time. I went and watched my son's football game. I wasn't okay. I think actually you guys came and met us at the football game because I think Bex had said, hey, Steve's not doing okay. We got there, I was there, but my whole mind was just dark. And then we went home. I was so exhausted. I thought, I'm going to have a sleep. I'm going to have a little afternoon nap. I lay down to sleep and there was so much nervous, anxious energy through my body that the second I would start to drift off to sleep, my body would just boom, jolt me awake.
Wow.
It was like a lightning bolt would hit my body. And so I couldn't sleep. So, it's this compounding sense of failure and dysfunction. And Bex came in, she said, have you slept? I said, no. And then I just said, look, I don't know if I'm okay. She was like, what do you mean? I said, I don't know. I don't know what this means. I'm not sure, but I think that it was at that point that I really realized I'm really not okay.
Yeah.
I can't fix myself.
Yeah.
And the only way is down from here. And I have no idea how to get up.
Wow.
And trying to be okay was like trying to just climb a greasy pole. It's never going to happen. And then I had this thought of going to church the next day, and I was so overcome with fear and anxiety about it. It was, I think I described to you, I said, asking me to go to church is like asking me to climb Mount Everest in bare feet. It's like, it's not even possible. It's not even possible.
Yeah. Wow.
And I ended up that day, I just broke down. I thought in my mind, this is it. This is rock bottom and I've lost everything.
Wow.
In my mind, my job is gone. My calling's gone. My income's gone. Everything's gone. I don't know. Because I have no idea that there's even a possibility that I might come back.
Wow.
It's totally impossible. And I ended up, I think, crying in the fetal position on my bedroom floor for about 3 hours, and uncontrollably, like such grief, such a sense of loss, and disappointment and sorrow, and I remember Bex was trying to console me, and all I could say was, I'm sorry, because in my mind I've taken everything away, and I don't know what was going on. I'm like, is this a mental breakdown? Is this a burnout? Is this, all I know is I'm very not okay, and I'm scared because in my mind, I've got very clear ideas and plans for potentially how to end my life.
Right.
And that's a scary thought when you've got two wonderful kids and a beautiful, amazing wife and a great marriage and people around me that love me, and having never had those thoughts before, to suddenly have them, and to believe that is a viable option, and not only just viable but probably the best option, was what really scared me. And when I vocalized that, it scared me even more. And that was the worst. That was the moment, man. That was rock bottom, where I literally thought, I'm done.
And so that was when Bexy called us, and
She
we
did.
came around, and I found you at the tail end of 3 hours in the fetal position on the floor of your bedroom, still weeping.
I was, yeah.
And,
I was.
And so we got you up and got you outside. We had to interrupt that pattern. We had to try and start shifting your state. We went out in the park across the road and tossed a rugby ball around.
We did,
for about an hour while we just talked and started to dig into what it was. And then we went on this journey, right?
Yeah, we did.
What do you remember about that journey?
That journey, like, first and foremost, I'm so grateful for you. I'm so grateful for you and Liz.
Thank you.
I know we've all got a part to play in this life with each other, but I genuinely believe I would not be here if you were on the journey with me.
Very kind.
I genuinely believe that, and I say this with all honesty, that you saved my life.
Well, we were just the right people at the right time, eh?
You were, but
God,
praise
had
God,
someone else
praise God for the right people, And so I'm deeply indebted to that, and I'm eternally grateful. And many people are very grateful for that, for you guys. What that began was a process of understanding what had gone on and what had gone wrong, and and I remember you'd say things like, Stevie, you're going to be okay, and I didn't believe you, and you really picked me up, and you began a journey of understanding where I was at, what had gone wrong, the depth of where I was, but then also working with me to formulate a plan out.
Yes.
And there was times, I remember, like, along that journey, it was like, I'm done. Like, I you got to understand, I'm just an absolute shell of who I am. I'm believing that I'm just this depressed guy. Like, I have zero hope of anything. I'm crying all the time. I can barely leave the house. And I remember you saying to me, just give me 3 months. And then you said something. You said to me, Steve, I said to you, Griffey, I don't know what to do. And you said, I know you don't, but I do. And you said to me, you don't know the way, but I know the way. So just trust me. I'm your handrail. So hold on to me.
Yep.
And I'll lead you out. And so I took you at that word, and because I had a choice to make at that point.
Very good.
The choice was stay depressed, anxious, broken, hopeless, or fight. And it was a fight.
Yeah.
It was that next 2 months was the hardest 2 months of my life.
Yeah.
Without a shadow of a doubt.
Yeah.
It was absolutely brutal, and I had to fight for every second, every moment, every hour, there was so many times along the journey where I was like, it's not like I magically woke up the next day and go, oh, cool, I'm better. It was a literal fight.
Yeah.
And I remember one day Bex asking me how I was, and this is probably a couple of weeks into the journey, and I said to her, today I'm fighting every second of this day just to stay alive.
Great.
I'm fighting because it was a battle just to live. And we began a journey of recovery.
Yeah.
And what's amazing, long story short, within 3 months, you had me back preaching 3 services a day. Within 3 months,
You know what?
and that was an impossibility.
Right.
An absolute
Yeah,
impossibility. But we got there, and it was amazing journey. Like it was hard flipping work, and
Yeah.
it was tough, and it was brutal,
And we had some setbacks on the way.
we had a
Yep.
bunch of you call them speed bumps.
Yeah.
We had a bunch of speed bumps. We had a bunch of wobbles. We had a bunch of. I mean, we talked either in person or on the phone every day for 3 months. Every day. You'd just finished your master's in counselling,
Yeah.
and I was basically your crash test dummy. And do I know what I'm talking about here?
Come on.
And it was literally every day we talked, and sometimes multiple times a day. There'd be times, sometimes I'd call you and I'd go, I'm like, Griffey, I'm too far gone. I remember having that phone call with you once.
Wow.
I remember where I was.
Wow.
I remember saying to you, Griffey, I'm too far gone. And you just said to me, Stevie, it's just a speed bump. You're going to be okay.
Yeah.
Just follow the process, follow the plan.
Yeah.
You're going to be okay. And there was
Very good.
there was 1,000 little things we had to
there
do.
were.
There was 1,000 little
Yeah.
things we had to start putting
Yeah.
in place, and it was one little step at a time and one day at a time, and it was brutal.
But it's amazing, isn't it, when you think back to that time, and then you look at you now, just a couple of years later. I've never seen you stronger. I've never seen you leading better. I've never seen you, more strategic. I've never seen you handling load, like you're handling. It's just awesome. And it was a pretty complex situation. After a year, you were suffering from post-traumatic stress. You were suffering from complicated grief, very, very high levels of anxiety, depression. I mean, it was all on.
Yeah.
It was a mess. And so we had to work through a process of kind of triaging and then prioritizing, and then beginning that journey and not overloading you too early. And we talked about how there will be bad days and setbacks. But I think when I think back on that, I think the most helpful thing, the most extraordinary thing was that you were willing to trust me.
Yeah.
You were willing to say, you tell me what to do and I will do it. And you did.
I'll do it 100%.
And you did. And
I think I realized I have no other option but to get better.
Yeah.
Because I cannot stay where I am.
Yeah.
And if there is any hope of being better, I want that.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
Yeah.
I'm gonna end my life. There's only 2 options. It's get better or done.
Wow.
Because where I was and depression is a crazy thing. Like anxiety is one thing.
Yeah.
To be anxious about stuff and have panic attacks, that's one thing, and that can be that's unbelievably crippling,
Yes.
and it takes away your joy and all kinds of stuff, and it bleeds into every situation. So I was once anxious just about coming to church, and now all of a sudden I'm anxious about going to a barbecue with friends. I'm anxious about leaving the house. And, but then the depression, when you lose hope and you lose joy, man,
it's tough, eh?
I'd rather lose a leg. I'd rather you chop off my right leg than me ever have to go through that again.
Wow.
Because when you lose hope and you lose joy, you suddenly live in a world where there's no good.
Yeah, that's right.
There's nothing to enjoy anymore. There's no good in tomorrow,
Yeah.
and things that should bring you joy no longer do. So your kids, it's almost like you start living. That passage of scripture is like everything's meaningless.
Yes, Ecclesiastes.
Everything's meaningless. Everything is dust. And because that's when I look at that now, I go, oh, that's depression. That's what it is.
Yeah,
that's what you
great.
feel like. Everything is meaningless. There's no hope in anything. So what's the point?
Yeah.
Why bother?
Yeah.
Oh, you're making me a nice meal. What's the point? It's going to be gone in a few minutes.
I remember you talking about how in that season, how desperate you were that your kids didn't get affected by this. It was a real thing that you carried in. And I think too, credit where credit's due. Man, Bex was amazing. Your wife was an extraordinary woman, and she was outstanding. And I think also credit due to the church, the leaders, the elders who knew, who were really happy to just completely support.
And to trust you as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you really took over that part for us. And, that was a wonderful leadership thing. And I know there's probably some who are in leadership going to be listening to this message. It was such a great job and role you played, where you became the became the facilitator between me and the board and me and the oversight. So you were able to go to them, because I couldn't even open my phone. I couldn't even look at a text message. I couldn't, it was just, it was horrific. And you were able to step in and go, hey, here's where he's at. Let me liaise with the right people and keep them informed on the plan.
Yeah.
And so that everyone can go on the journey. And, they were incredible as well. They were so supportive and,
they really
gave me the space I needed and just continued to trust that we're going to get there.
So, Stevie, when you think back on that time, what are some of the key lessons that you learned from hitting the worst day of your life and then going on a counselling, a therapy journey to come back to wholeness, which you have done astonishingly? What are some of the lessons you learned?
Great, Griffey. But there's a number of things I think. I think first and foremost, you have to do the work.
Great.
There's no shortcut.
Great. And you have to get trusted help.
Yeah. Get the help. So if you're stuck, if you could have got yourself out of that place, you would have.
Well done. Yeah, wow, great call.
If you could fix yourself, you would have fixed yourself by now. But you actually can't.
Very good.
And so you've got to get trusted help. I mean, I went on medication, anti-anxiety medication. That was a huge source of help for me and still is.
Yeah, great.
I dove in with you and it was like, I was like, whatever you tell me, I'm doing it 110%.
And you did.
So if you say that, I'm doing that, and I'm not compromising on it. So get the trusted help, and you've got to put in the work. I think far too many people are looking for the instant fix, the magic pill. Like anti-anxiety meds don't take away the anxiety. They just give you an ability to manage, and they're not short term. They are long term. So you've got 3 months before you're going to even feel any effects. So you've got 3 months to still walk through hell. Yeah. And most of the time, for the first 3 months, they make you feel worse than before they make you feel better. Yeah. So get ready for real hell and walk that journey. But you've got to do the work. And no one can do it for you. Yeah. No one.
And the beauty is that it is just small steps. And I think that was one of the challenging things early on was like, okay, this is our next step. We just, we went through a very standard 3-phase approach to dealing with trauma, safety and stabilization being that first phase, and just learning to stabilize that emotional dysregulation. And on the daily, that was your goal.
That was all for a month.
Was just
safety, stabilization, safety. Okay, just calm everything down a little bit. Just we're okay, and we're going to be okay. And there's a plan in place, and take the pressure off. And maybe you telling me you have to do something that you enjoy every day. I'm like, well, I don't enjoy anything. Well, what did you used to? Let's do that.
Great.
And prioritizing those things was incredibly powerful. And
very good.
Little things like shifting your state. I would get into those really anxious places.
Yep. So talk about that.
I had to move.
Great. You had to move your body.
Move my body. Yeah. So you got to get up and go, move, do something. And that was one of the big pieces of advice and big tools you gave me was, when you start to feel your body get into that distress state and it starts to become overwhelming and you don't know what to do, or you start to feel that emotion really coming up, and it's just go. You've got to shift your physiology.
Right.
Because what I've learned along the journey is that you can take charge of so much of what goes on in you by taking charge of your own physiology through breathing, through movement, all those kinds of things. So there was times where I could feel it myself getting all anxious and worked up. I could feel the overwhelming feelings going on, and I would just say to Bex, "We need to go for a walk now."
Great. Yeah.
And she would go, "Great." And so she was really in on the plan.
Yeah.
And so she'd be like, "Yeah, cool. We grab the boys. Boys, we're walking. We're walking."
Yeah, great.
Or there would be times where she would go, "We're going to the shops. You're coming with me." I'm like, I don't want to go. Great. I want to sit in my bed and feel bad and sad about my life because I don't want to get up. And the thought of doing anything is difficult. Yeah. But it's like, no. You're coming with me to this because it's going to distract you.
Very good.
We would do even things like doing puzzles or things like that. We'd have a puzzle on the table, and I would have to sit down, and it was just a distraction because when you're feeling that depression, anxiety, your whole world becomes internal.
Yes,
it's all about the feeling. It's all about what's going on, and it's so hard to get out of that. And so doing just little things which, even if it's for 10 minutes, it distracts your mind that you're sad.
And it brings you back into the present too. We talked about before about how anxiety is generally future focused and depression is usually past focused.
Yes.
When you're in that place, you're terrified about the future and you're
sad about
nailing yourself about the past. But actually the present, that's where you've got to get.
Yes.
So like you're saying, getting yourself back into the present, like, I'm fine, I'm okay today. We're here. It's me and my wife, and I'm doing a jigsaw puzzle, and it's okay. It actually, as inane as that sounds, it's a very powerful thing to calm that physiology back down again. And we talked about the 3 tools of emotional mastery, learning to shift your focus, learning to shift your physiology, and then learning to change that story that's going on in your head.
And that was the big next step. I mean, even for me, on those days where I was having to really be present, because your mind's going, but what does this mean for Sunday? In 2 months' time, in 2 weeks' time, you're supposed to be back in church, and so you start living there now.
Very good.
I just developed this little thing in my head. I just say, I don't care.
Great.
I care about that. I care about today.
Great.
Just be here.
Powerful.
Who cares about what that is?
Powerful.
Doesn't matter.
Yep.
Just be here today. Right now,
Yep.
you can't go there. You can just be here. So let's just do what today is.
It's a really useful tool. Like sometimes you've got to get a bit of a mantra for a season just to keep you focused on the right things. It doesn't mean you don't care. It doesn't mean you don't care long term. But what it means is for now, and this season I'm in, I can't care about anything other than being present and getting well. And you did that superbly well, Stevie.
Yeah.
So now, obviously this must have been a huge toll. Not obviously on you, but I mean, Bex is watching this. She adores you. She's in this ministry with you. Talk a little bit about collateral damage.
Yeah, I mean, my little meltdown, well, it wasn't so little, but that day was, a day before I think it was our 15th or 16th wedding anniversary, And it was one of those moments where she said to me, well, this is really better for worse, isn't it? Those vows now become real.
Wow.
For better or for worse, for richer or poorer, like on our worst day. And she was amazing, and like she's a phenomenal woman, and I'm so grateful for her.
But it did take a toll on her, right?
It took a huge toll on her because she really had to step up and carry our family, the church. She really just carried, and probably for a good 2.5 years, she really carried it because it took me a long time to rebuild my capacity.
Yes.
And I had to be okay with that. I had to be okay that my capacity is not fully back. And if I try and go fully back, there's not enough in the tank yet.
Very good.
And I remember you saying, Steve, there will be. It'll come back. There will be, but just not right now.
Very good.
Okay. And so I really leaned heavily on her. And what we discovered along the way is it took a toll on her. And it caused her to shield me from stuff and have to carry more emotionally and mentally and physically. And it took her a while to trust that I was okay to carry some stuff again.
Yeah.
And we had to get to a point where I actually even had to sit, we sat down and I had to say to her, I'm okay.
Yeah, great.
Let me carry it now. We're good. And she's had to go through her own sort of process and journey of in therapy around what the toll was for her and how traumatic that was for her and how, when the person that you love the most is in that kind of place, everything's uncertain. Yeah. Everything's up in the air.
I think that was the great thing too about it is that when we kind of got to the end of your journey when you're back in a healthy place and then starting to have the conversations about Bex and how she was doing with her and her realizing that actually, there was some stuff along that journey that didn't feel fair and she really struggled with it and she was afraid and she, of course, adores you. So she was so concerned for you. But then looking at the load she had to carry and then there was really some work that she was willing to go on that journey as well at the end of that. And I think that's important for people to realize, right, that when we go through a really difficult mental health time, when you get through it, you do have to stop and go, okay, who else has been affected by this and how do we help them heal
That's great.
as well?
That's great.
Which is fantastic.
And, she was amazing. And
she was.
She helped me every day to fight the fight and to get up and get going. And,
amazing.
But it definitely took a toll on her. And it's been great on the other side of this journey for me to be able to go, I got you now.
So
I can be strong for you. Like I'm okay.
So good.
And I still have a very clear protocol of how I live my life and how it's shaped me going forward and all those things. But it's
I think one of the great things, Steve, about your story is that, one of the things that shouts to me is it doesn't matter how bad it is or how bad you think it is, you can come back. Like to get to the place where you were and now to have you literally at the top of your game is so encouraging, right? For any of us, when we can hit rock bottom and we think it's all over, and the message is, it is not.
Yeah, and that's so true. I remember saying to you along the way, I remember saying, Griffey, I feel like, because it was when I started to get better, I said, Griffey, I feel like there is a very thin veil between me being okay and not okay. Because I could just feel myself slip back so easy. But then I said, but I've realized there's also a very thin veil between me being not okay and okay.
Very good.
I can get back.
Very good.
I can get back. I know what to do.
Yep.
And now being where I am, I'm different.
Yeah.
I think I'm better.
Yeah.
But I'm different.
Yeah.
And I'm still, but the I never thought, like, if you'd said to me 2020, this is where you're going to be, you're dreaming. There's absolutely no way. But there is.
Yeah.
You just need the right help, the right people. You need to put in the work.
Yeah.
And you've got to be disciplined going forward.
Brilliant.
Because I still know, like, I still have a balance disorder. I still have those episodes. I still get triggered.
Right.
So I still know that I can go back.
Yeah.
If I don't
maintain
the work that I need to do. Yeah.
Yeah. Really good. So, Steve, as we come to a close, where was God in all this for you? What was your experience of that? What are your thoughts about that?
That was a real challenging part of this journey for me, but also a beautiful part of the journey.
Okay.
So early on, I'm thinking, God, where the heck are you? You're the one that called me to do this.
Yeah.
And now you've allowed this.
Yeah.
I can't, and so now I cannot do what you've asked me to do.
Yeah.
And what I feel called to do. And so then I'm going, I need a miracle. That's what I need.
Right.
I need a miracle.
Right.
I need God to heal me. So I'm calling, I'm praying, I'm pressing in, I'm fasting, I'm calling every healing evangelist friend of mine going, you need to pray for me. And I'm calling every megachurch pastor going, you need to pray for me. And I'm talking to every prayer team member, you need to pray for me. And everyone's praying for breakthrough, and it just never came. What I expected to come never came.
Yeah.
So the instant healing, so I could just be the same old Stevie I was.
Yes.
It never came. And so then I had to realize maybe God is doing something in this.
Yeah.
So what I found was along the journey, I remember lying in bed awake at night, just crying out to God, because I couldn't sleep. It was 3, 4 in the morning. I haven't slept all night. I'm just going, God, it was so dark. I felt like I was just alone in the dark. I'm like, God, where are you? Like, what have you done here? I'm a pastor. I'm a follower of Jesus. Why are you not hearing my prayer, and why are you not answering my prayer? And I felt like the more I prayed for a miracle, the worse I got.
Wow.
I don't know if you've ever felt like that, but
yeah, good.
It's like trying to chop down a steel pole with a wooden axe. It's like, it's just never going to happen.
Wow.
And I got to a point one night, it was 3 in the morning, and I've been praying for God to heal me for months and months and months, and he hadn't. And so I don't know why, but I changed my prayer that night, 3 in the morning. And I said, all right, God, I trust you.
Wow.
My prayer is no longer, God, heal me. My prayer is simply, God, I trust you. Whatever you're doing in this, however you're going to have your way, I trust you, because I've asked you to heal me for months and you haven't. So maybe there's something else you want to do. So I'm going to trust you in the midst of it. And it was at that point I began to meet the God in the valley of the shadow of death.
Wow.
And I began to meet the God who outworks miracles along the way and outworks refining and development in the place of suffering.
Wow.
And
Brilliant.
that was incredibly powerful. And so what I then began to do was allow God to shape me and form me and do the work to make me the better version of me, the more Christ-like version. Not that I'm utterly Christ-like, but the more.
Sure.
So I say along the journey, like a lot of Steve died along that journey.
Amazing.
So I came out the other end a different man, and I'm still coming out the other end, I would say. There's a lot that didn't survive that journey, but in a really positive way. And so I met God in a way where God did a work, God did a miracle on the way. And it's like Paul's thorn in the flesh. He talks about, to stop me from becoming conceited. I've got this thorn.
Yeah. Yeah, wow.
And I asked God to take it away 3 times.
Yeah.
And he didn't do it.
Yeah.
But he learns to live with it. And not only does Paul learn to live with it, he learns that the power of God is manifest in greater measure, not because he doesn't have a thorn, but because the thorn is present.
Yeah, great.
There is a deep God reliance, not self reliance, that he experiences.
Very
so I started to understand the truth of that.
Very good.
Where every time I move and get up and do stuff, I'm like, I cannot do this. So God, you have to move. And it's been an amazing journey. I pray in Jesus, please hear me. I never want to go through it and learn that lesson again. But I'm very grateful for it.
Amazing.
I'm very grateful for it.
Amazing.
And you know, for anyone going through stuff, you've got to know there's a way through. There is hope, and God will still have his way in the midst of it all.
Amazing. Stevie, I just can't tell you how grateful we are that you are willing to talk about this stuff. You know, I know that one of our core DNA values here at Elim is about being real and authentic, and you are modeling that. You model that every day. And in the places where I've been with you, particularly on our overseas missions, where you have shared your story, leaders are astonished. They've never heard pastors or leaders talk about struggles and failure and difficulty and depression and those sort of things. Yet it's something that we all experience, and it has just set so many people free. You know, mate, we love you, and we're so excited about what the future has, and so grateful for your story, which gives us a little bit of a pathway forward when we're facing our toughest day.
Amen.
That's all we have time for today, everyone. Like I said, massive thanks to Pastor Steve and Bex and your amazing family.
Love you, Griffey.
So helpful. Hope you guys are encouraged. We believe that God has hope for you and a future, and we will see you Sunday.
Thanks for listening today. If this has raised something for you, 1737 is the number of a counselling number that you can text, that you can call if you need immediate support. You can also contact your local pastor if you need support. And then if you need some counselling at elimchristiancentre.org.nz. Love to support you on your journey. Have a great day, and we'll see you next time.